Hello, sixth graders. Welcome back to day 2 of the Odyssey. Couple of things. I know that by now you've begun the adventure with Odysseus' son Telemachus, and you know that the goddess who's going to protect him is the goddess Athena, the same one who protects Odysseus. And Telemachus is on a boat with Athena on the way to a neighboring kingdom to see King Nestor, to see if there is any news about his father. Before we get into it, though, I do want to point out that the narrator of the audiobook that we're listening to is one chapter ahead of the table of contents. I don't know why that is. But when in the table of contents, if it says chapter 5, the narrator, when you see the 5, is going to say 6. Don't let that confuse you. We'll just continue where we left off the day before, and I'll link the time in the lesson plans for you. Okay, back to Telemachus. So he is rowing with a crew of valiant men provided by Athena on a boat on his way to see King Nestor, and all of a sudden a minstrel starts to tell a story to entertain the men as they're traveling. And I know yesterday I used the word minstrel, but another word that you're going to hear for that same concept of a storyteller is bard. Okay, so there's 2 different words. Just depends on which translation you listen to and who's choosing what words to use in the translation. The Greek that the Odyssey was written in is very old, and many different people have translated it and interpreted the words and some of the lines in their own way, all of which seem to turn out really poetic, but sometimes very different. Let's get back to Telemachus. All right. So the minstrel is telling the story of the Apple of Discord, which you will remember started the Trojan War, which wound up taking 10 years to fight through. And in the bard is giving Telemachus and the men background on the Trojan War, telling them about the heroes that are going to fight on the side of King Priam and Hector, who is King Priam is Paris's father, and Hector is Paris's warrior brother. Paris is not really tough, so it's interesting that this whole thing started because he was a shepherd who wins the wife of another king who is actually a warrior. So you can see how all these factors went into precipitating a pretty big conflict. So back to where Telemachus lands on shore, he is going to meet up with 2 different kings. The first king he meets up is King Nestor. And King Nestor and Menelaus, both of them, are going to be very hospitable, the way that we know that Greeks should be, to Telemachus. They welcome him and feed him before they even ask who he is. King Nestor doesn't know much about Odysseus, but he's going to send him forward because he likes Telemachus. He thinks Telemachus is a worthy son of his hero father, and he is going to recognize that Telemachus should eventually be king of Ithaca when it's his turn after Odysseus. So the other king that Telemachus comes in contact with is King Menelaus, who only recently got back from the Trojan War. And remember, the Trojan War started 20 years prior. So King Menelaus, like Odysseus, had all kinds of problems given to him by the gods before he could come back to his homeland. So because he runs into a god that tells him about what has happened to his friends since the Trojan War, King Menelaus has some interesting information for Telemachus. And that is where we begin today's leg of our adventure.